Have you ever met someone so poor, yet richer than everyone around him? Sounds strange, right? But once you hear what this boy did, you'll understand. His name was Ethan Cole. Just 20 years old, a mechanic, with oil-stained hands and tired eyes. Every morning, before the sun even showed up, he'd unlock the factory gate, roll up his sleeves, and get to work. No complaints. No excuses. Just quiet effort. He didn't have much, a tiny rented room, a few old tools, and a jacket that had seen better days. No family. No one waiting at home. Still, there was this strange peace about him. A calmness that didn't make sense for someone who had so little. People at the factory respected him, but they didn't really know him. He never joined their lunch jokes, never went out for drinks. He'd just smile politely, finish his shift, and leave. Everyone thought Ethan was saving up for something. Maybe school, maybe a car, maybe a better life. But they were all wrong. Because what Ethan did with his paycheck was something no one could have imagined. And when the truth came out, it changed everything. Every Friday, when the factory buzzer rang and everyone rushed out laughing, talking about dinner plans and weekend fun, Ethan quietly walked the other way. No friends. No parties. No celebrations. Just that same old envelope tucked in his jacket, and a tired smile on his face. He didn't take the bus or a cab. He walked, miles through cold, empty streets, shoes splashing through puddles, until he reached a small, run-down building at the edge of the city. The paint on the board outside was faded, but the name still showed, Hope's Corner Shelter. That place wasn't new to him. Years ago, when he had nothing, not even a roof over his head, that same shelter had given him food and a bed. And now, every month, he came back. Not to ask for help, but to give it. He'd quietly hand over his entire paycheck to the old lady who ran the kitchen. "For the kids," he'd say, smiling faintly. She'd always shake her head, trying to hand it back. "Ethan, you need this money. You barely get by yourself." But he'd just laugh softly. "I've eaten enough from this place. Now it's someone else's turn." And just like that, he'd walk away, before she could even say thank you. No pride. No drama. No cameras. Just kindness, simple and real. Week after week, he did the same thing. No one knew. No one ever followed. Until one rainy night, someone finally did. And from that moment, Ethan's quiet life was never the same again. She wasn't supposed to be there, but she was. That night, rain was pouring down hard. The factory was empty. Everyone had gone home, except one person. Olivia Grant, the owner. She was young, smart, and confident, the kind of boss people respected but never got close to. She didn't smile much. Work was her world, and that was enough. Or at least, that's what she thought. As she stepped outside, umbrella in hand, she saw someone walking ahead, slowly, through the rain. No umbrella. Soaked completely. It was Ethan, the quiet mechanic who never talked much, always worked extra hours, and never asked for anything. Something about him caught her eye. The way he held that small envelope close to his chest. He wasn't heading home. He was going somewhere else. Curiosity got the better of her. Olivia started following him, quietly, keeping her distance. He didn't notice. He just kept walking through dark streets, until he reached a small, broken-down building with a flickering sign, Hope's Corner Shelter. Olivia watched from across the street as Ethan walked inside. Through the window, she saw him hand his envelope to an older woman. He smiled and said something. She couldn't hear it clearly, but when the woman hugged him, Olivia understood. Ethan wasn't paying bills. He wasn't saving up. He was giving his entire salary to a shelter. For a long moment, Olivia just stood there, in the rain, staring, speechless. She'd seen charity before, sure, but never like this. No cameras. No audience. No applause. Just kindness, quiet, honest, and real. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Ethan's face, that soft smile, that soaked jacket. And by the next morning, she wasn't the same person anymore. Sometimes, one act of kindness wakes up a sleeping heart. Olivia couldn't stop thinking about what she saw that night. The image of Ethan, soaked in rain, handing over his whole paycheck, it played in her head again and again. She'd met businessmen, engineers, even millionaires, but none of them ever moved her like that one moment did. By morning, something had changed inside her. She wasn't the same boss who only cared about reports and profits. She sat in her glass office, looking down at the factory floor, and there he was. Ethan Cole. Doing what he always did. Focused. Calm. Kind. He didn't just fix machines. He cared for them. The way he handled every piece, every tool. It was like the work meant something to him. When a coworker dropped a wrench, he picked it up and smiled. When the old janitor forgot her lunch, he quietly shared half of his sandwich. He never said much. He just did. And for the first time in years, Olivia felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride, mixed with guilt. Her father had built this factory with a dream. "We don't just make engines," he used to say. "We make lives better." But somewhere along the way, she'd lost that message. And now, this quiet boy, this poor mechanic, had reminded her of everything her father once stood for. Every day after that, Olivia found herself noticing him more. The way he worked, the way others trusted him, the way he carried himself with quiet dignity. But the more she saw, the more curious she became. Who was this boy? What kind of past makes a person give everything they have, and still smile like that? That one question wouldn't leave her mind. Who really was Ethan Cole? The answer she found broke her heart. Olivia couldn't shake that question anymore. Who was Ethan Cole? So one afternoon, she called the HR office. Her voice was calm, but inside, she was nervous, almost guilty for prying into his life. "Can you bring me Ethan Cole's file?" she asked. Minutes later, a thin folder landed on her desk. It wasn't thick like the others. No emergency contacts, no family details, no background story. Just a few lines. Orphaned at 15. Started working at 16. No known relatives. No dependents. That was it. Olivia stared at the page, her chest tightening. All this time, she'd thought Ethan was just a quiet worker. But he was alone, completely alone. And still, he gave away the little he had, to feed others. She leaned back in her chair, lost for words. How could someone who had nothing still choose to give? 4 years, she'd rewarded people who worked harder, earned more, sold better. But this boy, he wasn't working for money. He was working for meaning. Olivia wanted to thank him, to tell him how deeply his kindness had moved her. But she knew Ethan. He'd hate the attention. The moment he realized someone had noticed, he'd probably disappear from the factory forever. So instead of thanking him, she decided to do something much bigger. The day everything changed started like any other. Ethan came early, same routine as always. The machines were loud, the smell of oil hung in the air, and he was busy fixing an old engine that refused to start. He was focused, lost in his work, until a voice behind him made him stop. "Ethan Cole." He turned. It was Olivia's assistant, holding a clipboard. "Miss Grant wants to see you. Right now." Ethan blinked, confused. "Me? Did I do something wrong?" The assistant just smiled. "You'll find out soon." His stomach twisted. He quickly wiped his greasy hands on a rag and followed her upstairs. His boots echoed on the metal steps. He'd never even been to the owner's office before, just seen it from far away. Now, his heart was pounding, like one of the engines he fixed. Olivia looked up from her desk when he entered, calm, serious, but not cold. "Come in, Ethan. Have a seat." He sat carefully on the edge of the chair, nervous. "Ma'am, if this is about the late shift." Olivia stopped him with a gentle smile. "You're not in trouble." He froze. "I'm not." She shook her head. "No. But I need to talk to you about something I saw." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Something you saw?" Her eyes softened. "At the shelter." The color drained from his face. His hands tightened around the rag. You saw that?" Olivia nodded slowly. "I did." "You've been giving away your paycheck, haven't you?" He looked down, embarrassed. "Ma'am, please, it's not a big deal. I don't want anyone to know." "Why, Ethan?" she asked quietly. You don't even have enough for yourself." He hesitated for a moment, then looked up, his voice calm, steady, honest. "Because kindness isn't about being seen," he said. "It's about what you do when no one's watching." Olivia didn't move. She just stared at him, speechless. Those simple words hit harder than any speech she'd ever heard in her life. When Ethan left her office, she was still sitting there, replaying his words in her head. Kindness isn't about being seen. 7 simple words, but soon, those very words would shake the entire factory. Within minutes, the whole factory knew his secret. That morning started like any other: noise, machines, chatter, until the loudspeaker came on. "All staff, please gather near the main floor. Miss Grant has an announcement." Everyone looked up, surprised. Big meetings like this never happened unless something serious was going on. Ethan wiped the sweat from his forehead, a bit nervous. "What's this about?" someone asked. Ethan just shrugged. He didn't know that he was the reason everyone was being called. A few minutes later, Olivia Grant walked up to the small stage. She wasn't holding any papers, no reports, nothing official, just that calm, steady look in her eyes. The entire factory went quiet. "Good morning," she said softly. "Today, we're not talking about machines or targets. Today, I want to talk about something more important: kindness." The workers exchanged confused looks. Kindness? In a factory meeting? Olivia continued. "Last night, I found out something about one of our team members. Someone who's been quietly giving away almost all his salary, every month, to help people who have nothing. No one knew. Not even me." A murmur spread through the crowd. Heads turned. Whispers started. "That person," she said, her eyes scanning the room, "is Ethan Cole." The whole factory fell silent. Dozens of faces turned to him at once. Ethan froze, completely stunned. His face flushed red, and he looked down, wishing he could disappear. "Ma'am, please, you didn't have to say that," he muttered. But Olivia shook her head gently. "No, Ethan. You've given so much without ever asking for anything in return. But today, you deserve to be seen. Because some kindness deserves to be seen." Applause broke out, loud, genuine, unstoppable. Workers clapped, cheered, even shouted his name. Ethan stood there, eyes wide, holding his wrench tightly like it was the only thing keeping him steady. When the noise settled, Olivia smiled and said, "From today, Ethan Cole will lead a brand new project, one that builds engines not for cars, but for schools, hospitals, and shelters across our city. It'll be called the Community Engine Project." The factory erupted again. People clapped, some whistled, some even teared up. Ethan could hardly breathe. He looked at Olivia, voice barely a whisper. "Why me?" She smiled, a real, proud smile. "Because, Ethan, you remind us what this factory was really built for. Not just engines, but hope." The crowd cheered again, louder than the machines ever had. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Cole couldn't stop smiling. Because sometimes, the giver becomes the gift. Olivia looks at Ethan, her eyes shining. "You know," she says, "this factory was never just about engines. It was about hope, and people like you remind me why it all began." Ethan smiles, a little shy, a little emotional. He doesn't accept the promotion for fame or money. He accepts it because now he can help even more people. The next morning, he's already at his desk, sketching a small generator that could power shelters during cold nights. Everyone around him watches, quiet, moved, realizing that one act of kindness can light up an entire place. Just when Ethan thinks the day is finally done, Olivia walks up to him again with a soft smile. "Ethan," she says, "there's still one more thing, one last surprise." And right there, everything changes. One man's kindness can start a movement. A few weeks later, Olivia stands in front of everyone, not as a boss, but as someone inspired. With a smile, she announces, "We're starting the Cole Initiative, scholarships for orphan kids, so they can learn and work here, just like Ethan." The room fills with applause. Ethan just stands there, amazed, trying to hide his tears. That evening, he walks back to the same shelter, but this time, he's carrying blueprints, not money. "This," he says with a grin, "will keep every child warm this winter." The caretaker hugs him tightly, whispering a thank you that says more than words ever could. Outside, snow starts to fall, soft, peaceful, like the world itself is pausing to honor his kindness. And that night, something in both their lives quietly changes forever. He had nothing, and gave everything. Ethan sits alone in his tiny room, holding an old photo of his parents. The edges are worn, but the love in it still feels alive. He smiles softly and whispers, "I did it, Mom." For the first time in years, he doesn't fall asleep from exhaustion. He falls asleep with peace in his heart. Outside, the factory glows in the night, each light a reminder of how one man's kindness changed everything. And as the scene fades, a calm voice says, "In a world where everyone runs after money, one poor mechanic taught us what true richness really means, heart." Then comes the final question, gentle but powerful. What would you give, if no one was watching?